Fathers, if you're struggling to connect with your son or desire to strengthen your bond, here's a great opportunity. The Royal Hood Father and Son Camp is a bonding experience like no other, hosted by Eric Argerman in partnership with Dr. Alan Meyer from Valiant Man. Empower your son for manhood through unforgettable memories and faith-filled moments that will define his future. Secure your place for April 7 to 9 at CYC Adventure Resort, Phillip Island. Visit fatherandsoncamp.com.
Welcome back to another episode of the Everyday Joy podcast. I'm your host, Ash Couchman, and I cannot wait to find moments of joy with you today. I cannot wait to introduce you to this week's guest. She is one of the most incredible people I know, and I'm just so excited for you to hear her story, hear about her faith, and just get to learn from all the things that God has taught her over the last few years. So we're going to jump right into today's words to live by. Let's hear the word of God.
Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Matthew 7:13-14.
I have the wonderful Kate with me.
Woohoo!
Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Now, just to make sure that we know there's a difference, I have Kate Westwood, who was on probably a few months ago. And then this is my beautiful friend from church, Kate Willcox. I was like, before I was like getting their names mixed together. No, so beautiful Kate, welcome.
Thank you.
So good to have you. Now, I have, it's been like, is it almost 2 years?
Almost. I think in a couple of months it'll be almost 2
years in like June, July that I have known you, which doesn't feel like it's gone so quick.
But also like a lifetime as well.
I know.
It's wild.
So Kate joined our church probably, just under 2 years ago. And you've done internship.
Yeah,
you've done so many things. And it's been the best to get to walk beside you through all of it. And, you know, Kate's going to share a bit more of her story. But Kate, why don't you give everyone just like a 30-second, 1-minute intro? Who are you? What are you about? What do you love? Let people know a little bit about yourself.
Amazing. Well, I'm Kate Willcox, the other Kate. So I have like moved around a bit. I was in Melbourne and then I went to the Sunshine Coast. Then I moved to Sydney, believe it or not.
You've moved a lot in a short period of time.
Yeah. I realised I liked the cold, so I kind of kept going down. So my bingo board of where I've lived in Australia is filling up, but I think Melbourne's going to be it for a while.
Nice.
I do support work, which I just started this year and absolutely love. I can't believe I haven't been doing it for so much longer. I've joined the church. I'm on the kids team and youth team. Photography team. Yeah.
What team aren't you on?
I know. I was like, oh. But it's great. So I love the church that I go to, C3 Powerhouse, little shout out. Just amazing. So,
and you are like one of the most passionate people I know when it comes to like young people, in terms of you love youth, you love like, I think, and as people will kind of learn this week, your story is one where you're like, I wish I never stepped out of youth.
Oh my goodness.
And so I think for you, you kind of have this beautiful ministry that you've kind of built where you're like, I just want to walk alongside young people and see them thrive in their walk with God.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like if I had someone, I mean, look, I don't know if I would have listened back in the day if someone was like, don't do it, like stay in church,
make good choices.
I don't know if I would have like stuck to it and listened, but honestly, just to have someone come alongside you and like you'll get to know my story's a bit cooked and I made all the wrong decisions you could have. So if I can like help someone else at that age not go through that, that's kind of the goal.
Yeah, that's so good, Kate. I'm so excited for people to get to know you because I love you. And I want everyone to love you.
It's so good.
But we're going to jump into today's scripture. So we've got Matthew 7 verse 13-14. Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow is the road that lead to life, and only a few find it. Now, for a smidge of context, this verse kind of comes at the end of Jesus's Sermon on the Mount. he's kind of spoken about how you can live this good, godly life, what it truly means to be a follower of Jesus. And then at the end here, you've kind of got this notion of like, this is all good information, but you're going to have to make good, healthy choices to get there. And it is a little bit daunting when you read it.
Oh, absolutely.
You're kind of like, oh my goodness, like the road of destruction and not being near God is easy.
Yeah.
So easy.
So easy.
And then that road of walking with Christ can actually feel like narrow and small and it actually, to an extent, actually comforts me because it makes me go, walking in my faith actually isn't always easy.
Yeah.
And making those hard choices and making those decisions to live a godly life isn't always easy.
No.
But it proves to me that I'm making choices that are honoring because it's hard.
Yep.
I think that if every choice that I made was easy, I'd be like, oh my gosh, am I on the wide road right now? Because you've been living for yourself.
Exactly.
And so I think that it's just a reminder for us that living for God, it's actually going to involve some tough choices sometimes.
And even just the fact that it talks about how, broad is the road and so many enter through it. Like actually following the narrow road can be lonely at times because it says, and the narrow road leads to life and only a few find it. And so if you're going on the narrow path and you might feel a little lonely at times because you might not be going with the crowd, you might not be going with the masses. Good. So yeah, it's actually quite interesting even just that to be like, okay, it might be hard, it might be lonely at times, but like we got to seek and find it.
I've literally never thought about the fact that like the loneliness side of it, because I think we probably all experienced it at some point where you've been left out of something or you felt like making a decision has pulled you out of, a group setting or a group of people or even, to be honest, I've even experienced it within like people of faith where you're like, I'm heavily convicted about something and it might not even be bad as such, but you're kind of like, no, I want to be refined even more to become like Jesus. And so you're making choices to and it can be isolating and it can be lonely, but it's like it's always worth it in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I can maybe like share a story, because like this verse for me and the reason I go to it can be lonely is because when I was 13 I didn't want to be lonely. I think at that age you don't want to be alone. Like you want to do what other people are doing, you want to be accepted. Like it's such a pivotal time of your identity. And so I was like 13 and I had no friends in my class, just got to high school. So I found some friends. I made bad choices. And they were just girls, like, young girls. They were also trying to find out who they were. And I wanted to be accepted so bad that I was like, whatever they do, I'll do. And so I started like drinking, smoking, drugs, if I can even say that on this podcast, but like everything, there was like nothing off limits because I was like, I just want to be accepted.
Wow.
But the funny part is I felt even more alone. It's like I think when you're all even on that broad path, because it leads to destruction, I just saw my world implode around me. But it was like such a wide path that I didn't even know how to get off it. I was just like, I felt stuck on this path. And so like God has redeemed that. I'm going to say that now, like, he is incredible of just how he's like turned my life around. But like you said, the wide path is easy, but it brings so much heartbreak and destruction and pain. And just like, even if you're around all those people going the same way, it can still feel so lonely.
I think it's so interesting that you said that comment about that when you're on this wide road, it's like, where do I go? How do I get off it?
There's no direction.
What do I do? There's no direction. I think that it's so important for us to remember that you can get off it. And I think this week you'll probably share even more about how you kind of got to this point of like loving Jesus and being on this road of like his faithfulness to, through your life. But there is a way off that path. And whether you're listening and you are maybe in your high school years and you are struggling in that, finding your identity, figuring it out, or maybe it's even you're further down the line and you just know that you are making decisions and choices that aren't honoring God, you're allowed to stop and take a step off that wide road. I think that sometimes we look for like a life vest or a life jacket. You wait for someone to pull you away or pull you out. And I think that what we need to remember in this is sometimes it's our decisions and sometimes we're going to have to make the hard choice. Like this verse says, it's not easy to take a step to the narrow road.
And that's what I love is it's a step. And like I got on that wide path and walked as far as I did because every step was a different decision I made. So I took a step to, you know, start swearing. I took a step to start smoking. And even like smaller steps of, I took a step to walk away from, you know, church. Like I just stopped going, or like I took a step to lie to my mum, like, and it just kept growing. And I think as much as that's discouraging because, oh my goodness, how many steps have I just taken away? It's so encouraging to be like, but at any moment I can take a step in the right direction. Like, I think when I think about this verse, I have like this picture in mind of this wide road, but there's actually so many narrow roads coming off it. And, you know, if I never had walked that, I'm sure God had other plans for my life and all of that. But because I walked so far on that wide road, I took a detour halfway through and I'm on a different narrow path, but it's still towards God. Like all of the narrow paths are towards God. And so it's just about taking like that bold step, that first step to be like, all right, I'm going to change direction. Like I'm going to just move forward. Cause I've thought about even like, if you think about a motorbike, like this is one of my favorite analogies. You think about a motorbike, if you start leaning even like one like degree to the left or to the right, like you won't feel much, it won't change much. But if you do that for a long period of time, where you start and where you finish is so drastic because you keep turning. And so it's like with this, how, you know, you might not feel it at the start, the little decisions you're making, but you end up in such a different place. And if you feel like your life is like destructing around you, like collapsing around you, it's like such a good indicator to be like, maybe I'm on the wrong path. Like maybe something's up. I need to just like take that step back to Jesus.
Man, that is so good, Kate. Let's look back at this. Matthew 7 verse 13 to 14. Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow is the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Man, we're literally just scratching the surface of chatting with Kate this week, and I can't wait for you to hear even more of her story. But I loved that thought. No matter how many steps on that wide road you have taken, all it takes is one step to that narrow road. And that's salvation. That's the gospel message, is that no matter what you've done, no matter how far on that wide road you have walked, when we start making choices and make decisions and choose what can sometimes be maybe the harder, sometimes lonely road, it ends up in that beautiful place of living with Jesus and knowing that we have a life through him. I hope you got so much out of today's episode, and I can't wait to continue to unpack it with the beautiful Kate all week. We will jump back into even more words to live by tomorrow, but until then, I pray you're able to find moments of joy.
Fathers, if you're struggling to connect with your son or desire to strengthen your bond, here's a great opportunity. The Royal Hood Father and Son Camp is a bonding experience like no other, hosted by Eric Argerman in partnership with Dr. Alan Meyer from Valiant Man. Empower your son for manhood through unforgettable memories and faith-filled moments that will define his future. Secure your place for April 7 to 9 at CYC Adventure Resort, Phillip Island. Visit fatherandsoncamp.com.